Hello there, this is Point of View. I'm Mark Leishman. Tonight we meet a farm environment consultant, Alison. Her job is to help farmers balance environmental compliance with productivity. She's worked for Fed Farmers as an impact analyst and now works as a consultant, making it easier for farmers to get to grips with all the types of compliance coming at them, and there seems to be more and more every day. Alison Worth, welcome to the program.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here.
Is it like that? It feels like that, oh God, here's another form to fill out.
Yeah, it is, and I think for a lot of farmers it's probably a bit of a thought about box ticking exercises. It can be quite overwhelming, but I think it's really important to bring it back to farm level. What does it really mean for me, my farm, my individual circumstance? Because every farm is different.
Yeah, and it seems to me, when we talk about compliance, almost every day there's something else that you're going to have to do. Do you think we look at it sort of on too grand a scale, if you like? It should bring it back to the grassroots.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think it can be, as I said earlier, it can be very overwhelming when you look at it on a national scale. And everything that's going on in the media at the moment, protests at Parliament and so forth, it's really about bringing it back. What does it mean to me? How am I going to deal with it? How am I going to get my head around this? How am I going to work with my team to be successful? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Now, you had a big meeting, a big compliance meeting in the Waikato?
Yes, in Morrinsville last week. Yeah.
Tell us what was the basis of that, and what was the reason behind it, I guess?
Well, it was a seminar run by the Dairy Women's Network, and they do great work within regional communities all around New Zealand, and it was all about getting to grips with compliance. What does it mean for you as an individual farmer? And so compliance, not only from an environmental point of view, but also from a health and safety aspect as well.
So how many came along to that, roughly?
50-something, I think. There was, quite a few ladies, mainly. Ladies.
Who do you think, are they more responsible for filling all these compliancy forms?
Well, absolutely. I think we quite often think about farmers being the rugged guys driving tractors, but it's 50% of the farm businesses are the ladies often doing the bookwork. So they were there with very inquiring and positive minds, which was fantastic.
And what sort of things did you do? I mean, when you talk compliancy, what is it health and safety? Is it environmental issues or? Yeah,
so there was a panel. There was a panel of 4 people. We had somebody from Dairy NZ, somebody from Waikato Regional Council, and we had a farmer spokesman, and then also somebody from Ashore Quality, and they were talking about auditing, the processes of auditing, red flags, so forth, what they looked for when it came to a good, successful audit. And then Regional Council were there to provide information on upcoming rules around proposed plans with essential freshwater and so forth in that particular region. And then Dairy NZ gave some really great advice on compliance within dairy farming.
So what's your approach? I mean, how do you, when you greet a farmer, what do you just say, well, what's your problem?
I try not to look at environmental problems or as problems. They're kind of opportunities that challenges that we turn into opportunities, basically. And so my first question would be, what do you want to achieve? What are your aspirations? What are your goals? Let's not look at the rules part of it. Let's look at what you want to achieve for your farm. What does success look like for you when it comes to compliance?
Is there a general view on what that success is from farmers, or is everyone completely different?
No, I think the general consensus when it comes to environment planning, of course, is I want great water quality. I don't want to be seen as dirty dairying, all that sort of stuff. I want great water quality. I'm doing great stuff at the moment. 99% of the farmers out there are doing great stuff, and they want to create efficiencies across their farm as well. So efficiencies that give them more time to do the business of farming.
So, what were the greatest concerns that at your seminar, the compliance meeting? Yeah. What were the things that came through to you as a consultant?
It was more about where do we get started? How do we get started? Where do we find the tools and the resources to help us get started? And I think there's and information. The levels of knowledge throughout the room were quite a huge range of level. Some farmers had, were halfway through their farm environment plan. Others just hadn't started it because they don't know where to start. Yeah, so it was more about tools, resources, information. Give us knowledge so that we can make a real difference.
For someone like me, I'm not a farmer. What is a farm environment plan? What do they have to do? How long does it take? What is involved?
Right. So farm environment plan really is very much like a business plan that you would do for your business. But what it basically does is it's a map of your farm, or the first part of it is a map of your farm, and you identify risks and risk areas and areas of what we call point source contamination. So soil erosion, effluent ponds, drains, and so forth. So you're basically mapping all those out.
So that's quite straightforward, because every farmer knows his farm so well, so they know, and they know the weather patterns, they know where things are vulnerable, perhaps.
Yeah, they know what happens in a big weather event, all that sort of stuff. And then the bulk of the farm environment plan is your objectives and your tasks and your actions on how you're actually going to mitigate those risks. What are you going to do to prevent overflow from your effluent pond? What are you going to do what actions do you do to do that sort of stuff? What are you going to do to prevent riverbank erosion and so forth? So could it be stock exclusion? Could it be wide setbacks? That sort of thing. So there are lots of different variables, and as I said earlier, because each farm is so individual, there's many, many ways to skin the mitigation cat. Yeah.
So in a sense, because you think to be compliant means you're obviously not, you don't want to break the law, so you're doing everything by the book, and that's way. But in a sense, is there a wrong way of filling out one of these farm environment reports, because each farm is so different?
Yeah, each farm is so different, and as you said, every farmer knows how his farm works with the environment, how it responds to the environment, how their staff use the farm, how their stock move across the farm, and so forth. So it really is about being resourceful, being creative, and having a really good understanding of how your farm system works within its environment.
So you've got your plan, and then that's submitted, and then who decides, well, that's okay by us, you are compliant?
Yeah. So that's it's a bit of a grey area at the moment with farm environment plans, is that some councils require a farm environment plan for resource consent applications for water takes and effluent management and so forth. Other regional councils don't require an FEP, a farm environment plan, by law, so to speak, but it's looking like nationally farm environment plans will become a regulatory thing.
So you might as well get on the ride. And
you have to do it. Yeah, you're going to have to do it. And it's lots of my farmers who have done farm environment plans a long time ago have said, gosh, we wish we'd done it earlier, because it's made our farm more resilient from an environmental point of view. We thought about that crop down there wasn't quite doing that well. There could have been a bit of sediment runoff, so we put something else in, and we riparian planted, and my gosh, the crop that we put in there now is outstanding. That sort of results and success from doing a farm environment plan goes way beyond compliance.
So in other words, you're saying you're doing your own audit effectively, and saying, right, this is where I've got issues. Yeah. What do I need to do about them?
Yeah, and involving all your staff as well, getting all your staff and your family involved with the aspirations for your farm environment plan, because it can be really tailored to succession plans. For instance, mum and dad can say to son and daughter-in-law, hey, that these are the aspirations that we've had for the farm. We planted all those poplar trees up there originally, for a reason. Erosion control, whatever you have it. But now we want to see more trees planted on the farm. That's our vision for the farm, and so forth. And
so it's quite a nice way of saying this is our dream. Yeah. Elucidating what we had plans, and then the children, when they come along, take over the farm, know what your intentions were, which is intergenerationally, it's quite a nice wee thing.
Yeah, no, it's really good. A farm environment plan goes way beyond compliance in my mind.
So I think, we started off, you suggested, and I probably put it in your head, that compliance is a bit of a pain, that it's a negative thing, and you want to change that perception. So what are the positives of compliance? I mean, I suppose we've just heard one, that you have a plan.
Positives are, I've seen teams really, big farming teams really come together and almost micromanage and become micro-aware of certain things on the farm and take responsibility for certain aspects on the farm. So, for instance, I've got a farmer in Tikawiti. They've got a particularly erosion-prone area of their farm. Their head shepherd said, I'm actually going to, when I'm out there next, I'm going to take some plants out there, we're going to plant it up, we're going to fence off where we're planting and so forth. And so he's taken a real kind of micro view of that area and taken responsibility for it, and gets a lot of reward out of seeing that manuka that he planted, that's 3 metres high now and doing a great job. And so I think it really brings teams together. It really makes you more aware of how your farm functions in its physical environment, and it's pretty cool when you really get to understand how your soil moves, how your soil provides all sorts of ecosystem services. Yeah, it's very cool.
And I guess from another direction, the old health and safety. I mean, you get that right. That's a big positive, isn't it? It is. If you get it wrong, it's shocking.
I think it's one of those things. It becomes, the more you do it and the more invested your staff are into health and safety compliance, in particular, putting your helmet on when you get on the quad, that sort of thing is it can only be a good thing, and it becomes a habit, doesn't it?
So are habits changing? Are people changing their behaviours?
Absolutely, and I think compliance is a behaviour change, and people they really are, farmers are, we are, everybody is changing behaviour, and there are lots of different things driving that, but I think more often than not it's just stuff is just becoming habit, which is really good, and we're starting to look through the lens of compliance with a different lens, if you like. I think it's one of those where the farmer spokesman at this event last week said, when I'm walking around these particular paddocks that are along a main road, he said, I put my customer goggles on, and what would customers think if they were driving past and seeing trees fallen over, or something like that, a cow not very happy, what would they think?
And conversely, if they see beautiful, rich, lush paddocks and lovely, happy looking sheep, etc., you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, it's kind of that sort of attitude is changing behaviours. What would my customers think? Yeah.
Well, we'll take a look at key actions to being compliant coming up in our next segment. But my guest is a farm environment consultant, Alison Worth, and we'll be back with more right after this break on Point of View. Welcome back. This is Point of View and my guest, Alison Worth, farm environment consultant. And I guess the first thing is to actually get started with a farm environment plan.
Yeah.
Is it as hard as it seems? I mean, or is it just really a matter of saying, right, let's do it?
Let's just do it, yeah. It's not hard at all. What I say to all my clients to start off with is, hey, just have a meeting with your family around the kitchen table or around with your team in the shed. Sit down, how are we going to do this? What tools and resources are we going to use? You do this, I'll do that. You call so-and-so, let's just get started. Write stuff down, whiteboard it, have a whiteboard session. Yeah. That sort of thing. Just get started.
Yeah. What are the key actions to, I guess, being compliant?
I think be organised. Be organised, record keeping. It really is all about record keeping. If you use notebook, absolutely fine, but my biggest recommendation would be invest in technology and people that will support you to get you where you need to be. And if that means creating efficiencies across farm so that you can be talking to consultants or phoning people that you need to talk to, putting funding applications into banks, whatever you need to do, but create efficiencies where you get the time and the headspace to be able to do that.
assuming they have connectivity, of course, the net is good. Are there good websites for this in terms of form filling out?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd Google FEP, Google Farm Environment Plan, Google Health and Safety. FarmIQ, I have to say, is a great place to start. It's a great platform. It does everything, but at the same time, it's just like, do what works for you, and seek lots of information. You can't have too much information, because you can flesh out with your staff what will work for them. Yeah.
How did you get started? I mean, how do you become a farm environment consultant?
Oh gosh, yeah. I did an environmental science degree at Waikato University, and loved it so much. And my aspirations for the planet are that it's healthy. I have children, and I thought I just need to work with farmers to help them get on track, because they're getting a bit of a hammering at the moment.
Well, that's really interesting, because they are, aren't they? And a lot of it is pointed at them as environmental issues, which everyone loves to climb upon. When they're living in cities, have probably got worse environmental issues. But yeah, and do you find that, do you feel in yourself that you're succeeding and that things are getting better?
Yes, absolutely. I think that technology for me is driving a lot of that, and just the speed at which that I can help people. And with the efficacy that I can help people or help farmers is really, really good. And
so you come onto a farm. I mean, how does someone use your services?
They can phone. So I consult via FarmIQ. They can also phone me, and away you go. We just ask questions.
And are you replicated around the country? I mean, are there other Alison Worths out there doing exactly the same?
There are lots of farm environment consultants, I would say. A lot of them work for agricultural services. So yes, I think that there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of very talented people out there that can help farmers get on the right road.
You often, of course, you tend to hear the negative stories, and the effluent pump that failed and the effluent was poured everywhere. Yeah. I mean, I guess no farmer wants to have that headline surrounding them.
No,
and that's a tough thing. So are they generally accidents, or are they reckless, or are they slack?
Well, they have to be, don't they? And I think that you have to. It's like any accident. You have there are mitigating circumstances, and you don't really know what they are. Somebody could have been in a just completely the wrong headspace. You just never know, really. Pressure, a lot of financial pressure. Yeah. That sort of stuff.
But if something fails and you don't see it for a couple of days, that's a terrible thing, or because you don't have a mitigation, or are these issues that generally make the headlines really serious things that have gone bad and gone unnoticed?
I don't know whether they've gone unnoticed. I think that they're clearly accidents, or just
mishaps, whatever.
Absent mishaps, absent-mindedness maybe. Yeah. I think if that sort of stuff happens to you, and you kind of think, oh my gosh, what do I need to phone your council straight away? The sooner you get council on board, even though it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, you sort of think, oh God, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, the sooner you seek help, the better.
Embedding good management practice in the team, so that's a real must do, isn't it, effectively? Yes. And that, how is the best way of doing that?
There are lots of ways that you can do good management practice, but I think that most of it's common sense. It's kind of, I'm not going to let the cows eat that grass right down to the quick. I'm going to move them, or I'm going to stand them off. We're going to have a big weather event, or there's a big weather event forecast. I'm going to stand them off for a while, so that that no pugging is happening to the pasture. There are lots of things that you can do, and a lot of farm workers now have been to university, they've done agri-science, they've got lots of practical experience on farms. So good management practice is more often common sense. Mm.
And telling customers, what you're doing, what is a positive thing, telling the story?
Yeah, our farmers are quite, they like hiding behind their farm gates, don't they? They don't really like, the Kiwis I think in particular, they don't really like kind of blowing their own trumpet or talking too much about the good things that they're doing. And I think we need to change that behaviour as well, and get people shouting loudly from outside of their farm gates, hey, this is what we're doing. We've planted a gazillion hectares out, and we've fenced off all our streams, and we've done all these great things.
And do you find that generally in your role as a consultant that you are hearing those stories, that are you sort of, I guess, quietly pleased with the way things are going, and that most farmers are really deadly serious about it?
Oh, absolutely. They're deadly serious because it affects their productivity, and it affects the welfare of the communities. So they're very, very focused on doing the right thing. And many of them have been doing the right thing for years. They just don't talk about it.
So as to the compliancy thing, you get started, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Get started, that's number one.
Yeah.
And then get advice.
Get advice. So step one, get started. Literally have that meeting around your kitchen table. Step two, do a farm walk with your staff. Point out and map those critical source areas. You can do as little or as much of your farm environment plan as you like, depending on where you are and what you farm. So your particular region might have more complex environmental rules, but you can do a hell of a lot of your farm environment plan yourself. And then when you get to that point where you think, okay, now I've got questions about rules and regulations with regional council, now I've got questions about resource consent applications and so forth, that's when you start talking to your council and your environment consultant.
How long should a farm environment plan take? I mean, or is it something that's ongoing?
Yeah, it's a dynamic document. It's a living, breathing document. A lot like your business plan, and so it's not something that you're just going to go. I'm going to write. I'm going to tick all those boxes, and then you put it in a drawer. It's not one of those documents at all. It's one of those. I've involved the whole farm system. I've involved the staff. This is ongoing, so some mitigations and tasks and actions might go on for years. They might have a 10-year, 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan. Might be a 50-year plan. Yeah, so it's a living, breathing document.
And this being compliant thing, is it a new thing, or have we always had to do it sort of in one way or another?
I think we've always had to do it one way or another, haven't we? And that because having to do certain aspects one way or another have been embedded, we no longer think about them. So when new rules come in, we're kind of like, oh, it's something else to deal with, but actually it's not. It's just something else that we need to make habit. Yeah.
Are we required to be over compliant? I mean, do you think there's too much of it? I suppose that's a hard question for you to answer as a consultant. But
Yes. I don't think I want to go there, actually.
Is it getting worse though, or is it just there's a lot happening at the moment? There
is just a lot happening at the moment, and it seems like farmers are in that space at the moment, and it seems like there's a lot happening for them.
So the answer really is to get started and I guess make it a habit, make it just part of being a farmer. That's what
everyday life, increase efficiencies. I think I haven't had any farmer say to me ever, I regret doing a farm environment plan, or I regret being compliant, or doing things that will help me be compliant. Nobody's ever regretted saying that, or doing that. But more often they'll say, gosh, I wish I'd started that earlier.
And what are the key things, the most important things to make sure that you've got right? Is it about mitigating risk, or is it about riparian planting, or what are the real things that make a difference?
Every farm is different. So for some it might mean they have to really focus on pasture management. For others it might mean that they have to really focus on putting better infrastructure or more infrastructure in, such as standoff pads and so forth. For others it might just mean business as usual. So depending on where you are, what you do, what your farm system is, how intensive you are, will determine what you get started on and what the biggest things are for you.
And when you did your degree, were you always sort of someone who was good at the detail and filling out forms and things like that?
No, I wouldn't say I was a form filler outer, but I think just thinking a lot about follow-on effects, consequences, and so forth, thinking a hell of a long way down the line, what will happen if I do this? So foresight, I think I was probably
And can most farmers see that? Can they? Do they have that vision, that long-term vision? They can see where they want to go and what they want to do.
Yes, they do, and I think it's, well, I'd like to think they do, because farming's not about getting your paycheck every week or your income every week. It's long term. It's season to season, year to year. You know, you've got farmers obviously planting crops, maize crops now that went in a month ago, that they won't harvest until 6 months, but then they won't feed out until the following year. So it's, all farmers think way ahead. Yeah.
Let alone growing trees and things like that.
That's right. The best time to plant a tree was yesterday.
So all in all, don't be alarmed. What would your final message be, I guess?
Final message, get started. Just get started. Invest in good technology and good people and just get started. Yeah, and ask for support. There's, you know, don't be backwards in coming forward. It's about just finding the right resources and asking the right questions.
Alison Worth is my guest, environmental planner and consultant, and our special guest on Point of View this week. And thanks so much, Alison, for being here. And we'll have another Point of View at the same time next week. Look forward to your company then.